as we said, the Tigers open their season Saturday, the 30th of August against Austin Peay. It will be at Liberty Bowl Memorial Stadium in Memphis, 7 p.m. Eastern Time start, and the game will be on ESPN3. Coach, thanks very much for joining us on the call both today and during the course of the season. If you could take a moment to tell us how your training camp has gone and what do you expect to see when you take the field for the first time Saturday against Austin Peay.
Well, I think we had a good camp, as I'm sure all coaches across America probably feel right now. But our kids got a lot of work in. We got good work with some young kids, and I know our core group of guys are anxious to get out there and show how much they've improved.
And we'll take questions for Coach Fuente. Please hit *1 on your telephone to join the queue, and then the operator will introduce you. And we can go right ahead with the first question, please.
And we'll take our first question from Zach McMillan with the Commercial Appeals Memphis.
Hey, Justin. I'm wondering what your thoughts are on the so-called targeting rule and what impact it had last season. I know there was an adjustment made on how that's going to be applied this year. But, does it affect how you coach some of your defensive players, and does it even have any effect on strategy?
The targeting rule, is that what you said? I'm sorry.
Right, yeah.
No, it has a big effect, I think, on what you teach your defenders. I think it's a good rule. Obviously they've modified it a little bit that if it's reviewed and in fact deemed not to be a penalty, they'll actually take the penalty back as well, which I think makes good sense. We've had to coach our particularly I think it comes into play in the defensive backfield, but we've had to coach those guys to lower their target considerably. I think the rule is intended for those plays that nobody really wants to see, where guys, launch themselves into the head area of players on the field that are in a very vulnerable position. I think everybody's for that. It's the gray area plays that scare you on both sides of the ball, to be honest with you. The plays where the receiver's catching the ball and he's going down, and the defender's trying to lower his target, and it still has some of that upper body contact. But yeah, we've enforced it hard. We've coached it hard with our kids. I think the rule is meant to protect people that are in vulnerable positions on the football field. I think that's a good thing.
Did you see over the course of the year and even into spring and preseason, players being a little more cognizant of not, of lowering the target area?
Well, I think so. Yeah. The best of my recollection, we did not have an issue in the secondary with that call last year. We had one of those calls from a defensive lineman that I thought was probably clearly a good call, but we didn't have those during the season last year. Knock on wood. I'm hopeful we'll continue to do that. But I think the kids understand it. That's the most important thing. Understand what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. But I still think there's going to be occasions where that defensive player does everything right, and through circumstances that are beyond his control, is probably still going to draw a penalty, and that's the unfortunate part of it. But it's kind of what we've got right now.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
And we'll take our next question from Jimmy Trotglin with ESPN.
Hey, Coach. Just curious, Austin Peay's roster is really dominated by freshmen and redshirt freshmen this year, almost half the roster, in fact. How do you scheme when you really don't have a whole lot of video to go by?
It's pretty tough. You make a very good point. I mean, they have really made no bones about it. They've got a relatively new staff in there, and they brought in a bunch of new players, and exactly what they look like and how they fit into what their scheme is pretty difficult to cipher through when you're kind of flying blind a little bit. So we do the best we can with what we know about their scheme and prepare accordingly.
Coach Ken, and of course, trying to build this program, have you been in a situation before where you've had to rely on so many freshmen and so much inexperience?
Well, for us, it's been like that offensively since we've been here. It really has not been like that defensively. We've had a little bit older squad the last couple of years defensively. Offensively, we played a bunch of guys that were true freshmen, redshirt freshmen, and that'll still continue here for this year. Probably not as many this year, but it's always an interesting deal. You kind of live and you learn with those guys, those young guys that haven't played, but you got to try and find a way to get your best ones on the field. So I kind of understand where they're coming from on that deal, but you got to try and get it simple down, as simple as you can, and those guys knowing what to do and feeling good, and let them go play and let their talent show.
All right, thank you, Coach. See you Saturday.
You bet.
And we'll take our next question from Rob Fisher with Sports 56 Memphis.
Coach, when you got to Memphis, you talked about needing to change the culture of the program and the players. Entering year 3, do you feel like you and your staff have been able to get to the point you wanted to as far as that culture is concerned?
Well, I think we're getting there. I don't know that you can just say it's totally changed. It's a constant battle. It's a constant reinforcement. I think it's far better than it was, and it's getting better daily. But is it exactly where I'd like it to be? No, and I think that's going to come with time and continued experience and continuing to learn from older guys. We had I was thinking of this the other day, we had an interesting situation my first year here. We didn't have a lot of seniors, but we had some great leaders. When you think about Akeem Davis and Cannon Smith and Mitch Hilsling, guys that really, really were very good leaders and helped keep that team together. And we've continued to change the culture and try and develop that type of leadership and learn from that first group. And we're continuing to plug away at it. I don't think it's a finished product yet.
And do we have any other questions for Coach Fuente, please? Star 1 on your telephone if you do. And, Coach, thanks for your time this week. Look forward to talking to you during the course of the season.
No problem. Thank you.
Coach, would you hold for just 1 minute? We did have one more question chime in, if you would.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, thanks.
We'll take our next question from Brian Moss with TigerSportReport.com.
Hey, Coach. With this first game of the season, what concerns do you have going into it, being as the first game, other than the basic injuries? Do you have any concerns at all?
Well, I have all kinds of concerns. There's so many variables that go into a game, and no matter what, each team is different. So this is the first game that this team, even though we've got some returning starters, the first game that this team has played together. So, you think about all the special situations that could come up. You think about, sky kicks on kickoff return, and you think about onside kicks and all the things that you want to make sure you're ready for. Those are the things that we spend the most time on, or I guess the things that we think the most about. As far as your players, you just keep developing them and keep getting them pointed in the right direction and teaching them what to do and how to do it, and let them show off on Saturday. But from a coach's perspective, you're always thinking about all those scenarios that could come up.
And talk about this year's seniors. I know the way the season ended left a bad taste in their mouth when you talk to them, during fall camp and when talking to them at the media day. How well do you think this group of seniors have taken responsibility and control to make sure that doesn't happen again this season?
Well, I think they've done a good job. I think they understand, the level that we're trying to set. the level of expectation, the standard that we want to live up to every day. We'll see as we go through the season. That's kind of the challenge. It's one thing to talk about it; it's another thing to do it, and to do it when it's difficult. So, I've told this team I think there's no doubt that we'll experience success, and there's no doubt that we'll experience some tough situations, and how we respond to those in the short term will determine our long-term success. And I think those older kids are really trying every day to continue to raise that standard, or raise that level of expectation, and we'll find out as we go through the season.
I appreciate it, and see you Saturday.
You bet. Thank you.